All right, and let's go ahead and kick off. So thank you everyone for joining. Super exciting to see you for this Zoom-based edition of ProductTank Pittsburgh. And we are very excited to be bringing you this topic today. Before we start, Nick, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we want to say just a few words about the ProductTank community. So for those of you who maybe this is your first meetup with ProductTank Pittsburgh, we are one of many ProductTank groups globally. So actually, I guess the bragging right here is this is the world's largest product community, and it's meant to be by product people for product people. So it is very much community driven, grassroots, good product stuff at both the local and global levels. As I said, there's over 200 plus cities in the world with a product tank, and we're lucky that ProductTank is a part of the Mind the Product community. So if you're not familiar with that, they do a conference every year. They have great blogs, great videos, great interviews, just so much good content that you can find with Mind the Product if you haven't yet checked out that resource. So I would highly encourage everyone to check that out. If you feel inspired after today and you want to get further involved with this community, there are several ways you can do that. You can speak at a ProductTank event, whether that's ProductTank Pittsburgh, for those of you Pittsburghers out there, or for those of you joining from other cities, go ahead and find your own local ProductTank group and hook up with them. You could offer to host or sponsor a ProductTank. So usually, let me find the mute button. Okay. So usually we meet in person. So if you have an office building that would love to host us, or you want to provide food and drink to our wonderful attendees, that's always a welcome way to get involved. You can also write. If you want to submit things to mindtheproduct.com, that's a nice way to be involved. And you can actually become an official member of Mind the Product at the link shown here. So lots of different ways to get involved. So now on to the good stuff. Today, we're super excited to be bringing you this topic, Unlock the Future of Product Management with AI. And our speaker, Mustafa Kapadia, is Managing Director at Echo Point, where he runs, I've heard they're amazing boot camps. I have not yet attended one, but I'm excited to check this out. Both public and private boot camps really focused on helping product managers 10x their productivity with AI. So we're lucky we're getting a little sample of that here today. Prior to being at Echo Point, he was the global head of product and innovation at Google, and he led the transformation and innovation practice at IBM. So Mustafa brings us over 20 years of product experience, which is, rich with a wealth of knowledge and practical insights, which again, we're excited to hear about here today. He has a wonderful newsletter that you can subscribe to at echopoint.com. I will drop that link in the chat, and we'll also send the link as a follow-up after today's session, but highly recommend joining there so that you can get his ongoing great advice, tips, case studies, everything related to AI and product management. So with that, Mustafa, I will turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Betsy. That's a great introduction. In fact, you should do all my introductions from now.
Hey.
Thank you, guys. It's nice to be here. Let me just get my screen going. You guys can see, yes?
Yes, we can. Looks good.
Perfect. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. When Nick and Betsy approached me to talk about how we can use AI for product management, I literally jumped on a chance. So thank you again for the opportunity. Let me start our conversation with a simple question. Right? And by the way, I walk around. I apologize. It's a bad habit or a good habit, depending on who you talk to. Let's start with a quick question. Can you really automate PM tasks with AI? And when I talk about automation, I'm not just talking about automation for automation's sake, right? Automation so that it can save you time, and not just a little time. We're talking about 10x or at least 80% of the time that you spend on a task. And B is that it's not just about going fast, but it's also about, can it give you great quality? So probably at a minimum, as good as what you can produce now, but ideally, hopefully better than what you can do. So it's not just automation, but it is, can you make it faster, or can it help you save time, or can you deliver better quality? And if you guys can unlock that, there's 3 things that you benefit from. At least 3 things that my students have told me again and again. The first one, obviously, is save time. But save time means that now you can spend more time on things that matter to you. You can spend more time on strategic initiatives that you want to do or your organization's asking you to do, or just spend more time with your family and have a better work-life balance. The second benefit is you can actually use it to impress stakeholders. So either by delivering higher quality of work products, using AI to be more creative, to think about ideas that you may not have thought about, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, or maybe just level up your skills, right? AI is a great enabler in which if you're new to product management, you can actually use large language model capabilities to actually upskill it so you can get that 20 years of experience. You don't have to go through what I did. And third, which is actually my personal favorite, is that it can either help you advance your career or at a very minimum, future-proof your career. Listen, whether we like it or not, AI is going to change the way we work. This is just the new future. And yes, we're very much early in the stages of revolution, but this is where things go. We're going to be AI-enabled, AI-empowered, whatever you want to call it, for the conceivable future. And so getting these skills now is of great benefit. So with that being said, let's come back to this question about, can you really automate with AI? And to help answer that question, I have a very simple agenda, right? Number one is I want to share with you a case study or a story. I'm going to share with you Anna, who is actually a real person, fake name, by the way. She doesn't want to be made public. About how Anna used AI to actually save time, deliver extremely creative results, and actually impress the CPO. And we'll go deep into that. Second is, I'm a big believer in showing, not telling. So we're going to go through an interactive exercise. We're actually going to use AI to do some brainstorming to come up with new product and feature ideas. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer, and I promise I will be as gentle as possible. And third is, I want to share with you how other PMs are using AI, just so that you kind of know, even though we're maybe early stages of where we are, there's so much that you can do right now that it boggles my mind, right? And so it's more important, it's like, once you understand how AI can do, it's amazing what it can do for you. And then we'll briefly talk about next steps. Does that sound like a good agenda and a good use of your time? Good. So I don't have to go through this because Betsy did a fantastic job. I will just add one thing. Everything that you see here is, actually, let me step back. So I do a lot of coaching. And it's something that I've been doing for a long time, but especially in the last year, I've been doing a lot of coaching. And during coaching, a lot of my customers and clients would come to me and say, hey, can we start using AI to do some of these things? And that's really the genesis of what you're seeing today, right? It started off slowly, in which I started automating 1 or 2 tasks. 1 or 2 tasks turned to 20, to 30, to 50, to 60. And then at the end of last year, one of them said, hey, Mustafa, maybe you should actually create a course out of this. And so I launched a course sometime in January of this year, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised how many people have signed up. But what I'm trying to tell you is that everything that you see here is actually based on real life experience of real life product managers using these prompts to actually do the 3 things that we just talked about: save time, impress stakeholders, and advance their career. So with that being said, let's talk about Anna. So Anna is a product manager. She works for one of the big banks. She previously worked for big tech. She was recently promoted to senior PM, and she's responsible for multiple products in the bank. She is very customer-centric. She's detail-oriented. She likes writing good requirements because that gives her pleasure. That gives her the ability to be more concrete and specific with her engineering team. but she also has this tendency to take on too much work, right? So if you think about Anna, think about her as passionate about building great products. She's very ambitious, but unfortunately, she's also very much overworked. And within this context, let me tell you a story. So Anna's having a great time, but unfortunately, today is not that day. The CPO came to her and asked her, hey, Anna, we need to revamp our digital experience for how people apply for credit cards. It takes too long. The experience is broken. We've heard customer complaints that they stop the application halfway through or they abandon the card halfway through. And so the CPO wants her to come up with a list of features that they can take to the board itself so they can get funding. And it has to be innovating. It has to be eye-popping. It could be something that will actually reignite the imagination of the board. Now, usually, a task like this takes Anna about 2 weeks, right? She sits down, she does research, she does brainstorming, she writes them down. But unfortunately, in this case, the CPO has given her only 2 weeks, and only a week. And she knows that since she was recently promoted, she needs to make a good impression. But she also has all these other products that she's supporting. So at this moment in time, she's feeling very much overwhelmed. So this is what Anna would look like, or her week would look like without AI. She'd probably start with a blank screen, right? She might do Google, she might look at the competitors, she might look at some customer reviews. She might actually look at some old PRDs or requirements. And so she would use that to do some brainstorming, some gathering ideas. Then she would spend hours writing it and rewriting it and formatting it, making it easy to read. And ultimately, what she would have is a half-baked set of ideas. And while she's doing all this, remember, she's supporting 2 or 3 other products. All the other work is piling up, so she has to not pay attention to that. And the best that she can do right now, at the end of the week, is she hopes that the CPO is not disappointed, right? And so usually, for her, this would be about 10 to 15 hours of work time. So this is, think about it as hands-on keyboard. And elapsed time is about a week, right? So this is what Anna's life would look like before AI. So now let's talk about how Anna can use AI to actually help her. So just let me do a quick demo. So Anna has created a playbook of all the AI tasks, all the tasks she wants AI to automate. So she goes to the playbook. By the way, can you guys see the playbook? Perfect.
Yes.
She goes down, she finds the task that she's looking for, which is brainstorm new feature ideas. She has a prompt already. The red is what she edits, because the red is about the product problem that she's trying to solve, who she's trying to solve it for, what is she trying to build, what is the user benefit, what's the desired outcome. She takes the entire prompt. Let me do that. She goes to her favorite large language model. We'll just use ChatGPT for now, but you can use it for any of the large language models. Paste it in here, and you're good to go. And here you go. What AI is going to do for her is just going to give her 20 ideas. They're perfectly formatted. They're easy to read. What she now has to do is go through this, curate the list, pick the 4 or 5 that she likes, and move forward. She can even spar with the AI to say, hey, I want to go deeper in this one, or can you give me 20 more if she doesn't like it? So now let's take a look at what Anna's life looks like with AI. In just a few minutes, you just saw me create 20, 30, 40, 50 ideas that are easy to read, perfectly formatted, relevant to her problem. She picks the 4 or 5 that she likes the best. She can choose to make them as innovative as possible. She can make them as risk-averse as possible. She can chat with her AI to do that. And then she continues with her work, and she's ready to impress the CPO, right? Now, this task writing the prompt, coming up with identifying the problem, and so on and so forth. I'm going to be generous, takes probably about 2 hours. 10 minutes to generate the problem, 10 minutes to generate the options, and spend the rest of the time curating. She can do the entire thing that used to take her 10 to 15 hours, can do it in 2, right? And so if you look at her experience now past AI, she saved at least 8 hours. Her velocity improved from spending a whole week to 2 hours. Instead of thinking about regurgitating old ideas, she was able to come up with 7 creative ideas. And most importantly, she was able to impress the CPO, her stakeholder. And so if you can use AI effectively, that's the promise of AI, right? Any questions on this before we go to the next one?
Mustafa, there were a couple questions in the chat. I can read those out
Perfect.
if you want. So John was asking, do you have a system prompt helping to clarify your expectations?
Perfect. John, yes, I do. In fact, we're going to talk about that in the next section, so just give me a few minutes.
And then
Is there anything else in here?
Yeah. Robin was wondering, how do you verify the validity or even correctness of the results?
Great. I love that question, Robin. Wait 2 seconds.
And then one more. Troy wonders, I missed where the creation of the AI-enabled playbook was generated.
Yes. So the AI-enabled playbook is something that I give my students when they join the course, but it's something that you can create yourself as well. So this is great. Let me answer the 2 questions that are coming up, because let me step back, right? So you guys are probably thinking, Mustafa, that sounded great, but how can I know that the answers or the responses that the AI generated are relevant for me? Because that's really where the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? Right? How can I know that what you just showed us is actually going to work for me? How can I tell if it's actually going to save me the 8 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours, whatever it takes for me to do the feature idea generation? So to do that, the best way to show that to you is to actually do an exercise with you. So here's where I'm going to look for a volunteer. Anybody wants to volunteer to be Anna in this case? And we'll take your product, we'll take your problem, your user, we'll put it through the AI, and then we'll actually evaluate the responses together. Anyone? I promise to be gentle.
And you can raise your hand or you can just come off mute and speak up.
How about this? I'm going to start picking on people. You know what? I'm going to pick on, let's see, Nick or Betsy. Would you like to volunteer, please?
Nick, you want to go for it?
Okay.
Perfect. So Nick, very simple, by the way. We're gonna do the same thing as what we did with Anna, right? We're gonna brainstorm a feature prompt. You and I are gonna help write the inputs, which is the red part, and I'll go deeper into that one. We're gonna run it on ChatGPT, and the free version works great. And then we're gonna evaluate the response together. Does that sound good? And by the way, for people who are actually want to do it as well, you can follow Nick and me along, or if you want to use your own, here's a link. I'm going to drop it in here, in which you can actually edit. Let's see, where's chat here? Sorry. You can actually play with this prompt. And then I know there was a question about system and user. We'll talk more about that as well. So you guys will have to, you don't have edit access, so you just save it as a different document and you can play with it. Yeah. So Nick, let's talk about a product that you're trying to build in which you want to generate new ideas. So let's start with the first one. I always like to start with the user. So tell me, who's your user?
Residential paint customers.
Residential paying customers?
Paint, as in paint the wall.
Ah, paint customers. Got it. Perfect. And what problem are you trying to solve for them?
You missed the T there, so I don't know if the
Paint, yes, that's a big one. Thank you.
that could be an interesting other
Yes.
subset of customers.
Residential
for
paint customers, yeah.
moonlighting gig.
Aren't most customers that paint? No, just kidding. Go ahead. What kind of problem are we trying to solve for them?
Customers fail to order paint swatches through the website. Color swatches, I should say.
Why don't they do that?
Would it be better if I just said that it was like abandoned carts with color swatches in them?
Yeah. Let's see, customers. How about this? Ordering paint swatches online experience is broken. Let's just keep that, yeah?
Great.
Sorry about that. They either can't order effectively. By the way, I'm making this up, so you tell me, or abandon cart prematurely. Do not enjoy the experience. Tell me what I can do to make this better, because I literally just made it up. Does this capture the gist, or?
If you're asking me, yes.
Yes. Sorry, this is Nick. This is just you and me. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
All right. So if this is the problem, and what is it that we want to build? Do we want to design a streamlined digital experience of ordering paint swatches? Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. And how will the user benefit if we actually design this experience?
It will be easy for customers to follow through on the order.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Customers won't get distracted or sidelined, derailed. I'm trying to think of my words here.
That just talk and we'll figure it out.
Okay,
So
yeah, the customers
don't
will-
worry about putting into sentences. Humans are horrible when they edit and talk at the same time.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
the customer will find it easy. They'll go ahead and complete the transaction, the ordering process. They won't get distracted or derailed or demotivated along the way.
Okay.
Ravi, do you have a question about that bit, or do you want to wait till the end of this exercise?
I just had an idea to add in the experience. I was just curious if we can do that here. So if we can add an experience of actually visualizing the paint swatch with the upload image of the room to visualize for a customer, how the room would look like with the paint color or something like that as a product feature.
So remember, we're gonna ask the AI to come up with product features. So you want to be at this
Oh,
moment
got
in
it.
time.
Got
You
it.
want to give it a problem. It's gonna give you a bunch of ideas,
Got it.
right?
Perfect.
So the better, I know we're right now not doing justice to the problem, because we need to probably define it a bit better and talk a bit more about the user benefit as well. But at least it's good enough for the first draft, right? Nick, is there anything else that you want to, experience will not distract the user? Is there anything else that you want to have the user benefit from?
I would like them to feel good about their decision to order the paint, the color swatch, yeah. Feel confident or just feel good about, oh yes, this was a good experience. I'm getting what I need.
Okay,
I might even do it again sometime.
perfect. Can I ask you a question? When people buy paint swatches, is it just basically to test out the colors at home? Yes?
Yes.
Is there any other motivation?
There could be. I feel really on the spot though, so I'm blanking.
That's okay. All right. What about the benefit to you guys? What is the desired outcome?
Abandoned carts drop by 30%. Our remarket efforts also go down.
What do you mean by remarket?
Having to follow up with an email to them to say, oh, it looks like you left something in your carts, and reach out to them again.
Let's just say abandoned cart by 30%. Let's keep it simple.
Sure.
Yeah? All right. Is there anything else that we can do to enhance the input? So we have a problem saying ordering paint swatches online is a broken experience. Customers can't order effectively or abandon cart prematurely. They do not enjoy the experience. Let's say residential customers, let's just keep them residential customers because paint, right? As opposed to, because when you have paint for warehouses and factories, that's a very different user group. Residential customers, what we want to build is designed a streamlined digital experience of ordering paint swatches. Benefit is customer will be easy to find. To order paint swatches, the experience will not be distracting, I guess. The hardest part is my English, by the way, is my writing.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yes.
I mean, I've painted, isn't the point of getting the swatches so you could see what the paint looks like in different lighting? I mean, that's why you want it to test it out. So if you could show that yellow color in direct sunlight and, shaded
Yes.
room, or, would if they could see that, wouldn't that incent them to actually buy it versus getting the swatches?
Yeah. So I agree with you, and I'm happy to change the input to what you're talking about. I was just trying to give an example, so to speak. So how can we enhance this input a bit more?
I guess I'm just wondering with the prompt, if you're putting, like, obviously dropping the percentage of abandoned carts is going to in some way increase revenue, but is adding that to the prompt going to change what you're getting back from ChatGPT or whatever? Or does it
So
kind of
let's
just
do that.
infer
Let's
that?
run it both ways. How about that? Right? Because what you're trying to do is what you're doing is you're asking ChatGPT, you're giving it context. And your input is really context. It talks about your problem, the user, what you're trying to build, what is the outcome, and what's the benefit. And the idea is for AI to then give you ideas that you can then pick and choose. So let's stay with what this is now, and then we can play around with it. In fact, you guys are 2 steps ahead. But how you put the input is just as important as how you write the prompt. And when you think about the prompt, you think about the black as being the system and the red being the black being fixed and the red being the variable piece, right? So let's just, Nick, let's stick with this. I know it's not the perfect input, but let's just go through and see how it goes. Yes?
Let's go.
All right, so I'm going to open up a new chat. Let's do that. All right, now it's going to generate 20. So, Nick, I'm going to put you on spot again, right? So we're going to do a quick evaluation, so to speak, right? And when we think about evaluations, by the way, I want you to think about in 3 dimensions, right? Number 1 is just readability. Is it easy to read? Is it in the right format, so to speak? And I know that sounds silly, but I don't know how many times at Google and IBM, I've had people write features that actually make no sense whatsoever. The whole point of having features is that somebody else can understand. So that's number 1. So we'll do a readability check. The second thing is relevancy, which is probably where most of you guys are focused on, right? How many of these features make sense? How many of them don't make sense? How many have you already considered? How many you have not considered? How many are relevant? And then we're going to go into the creativity, is how many ideas that made you go and say, huh, I didn't think about that. So let's go through each one of those, yes? All right, so Nick, let's go through and I'm going to have you just quickly scan through this, right? So you have virtual room preview, personalized color recommendations, swatch sample kit builder, you have chat, you have a one-click reorder, interactive color comparison tool, subscription for the latest trends, user-generated reviews and photos. You have a mobile experience, you have swatch customization, return, free return shipping, order tracking, eco-friendly swatch options, bundles, loyalty programs, easy checkout. So just give me a general impression. Let's just talk about formatting and easy to read. What do you think so far?
Formatting and easy to read. Yes, I would give them a thumbs up there.
Okay. Let's go to the harder one. Of these 20 that are generated, how many of these make no sense whatsoever?
They're all seeming to make sense to me, though.
Okay, good. So relevancy is relatively high, yes?
Mm-hmm.
How many of these actually are things that you have not considered?
Can we get this, scroll down there? Yeah. It's looking like at least 2 or 3 of them haven't been considered yet.
Good.
Some might need reconsidered, actually, based on what we're seeing.
Okay, good. How many of these have you already considered?
I would say at least half of them.
Good.
But yeah.
So thank you, Nick. And by the way, I won't put you on the spot anymore. But you guys can see that and by the way, we didn't spend a lot of time on the input. As you can tell, we had lots of people say we can make things the input better. You can notice that if you actually asked AI the answer correctly, if you ask the question in a certain format, it can give you highly relevant results with very vague responses. If you actually make your responses even better, if you make your input even better, this quality of response is going to get much better. But if you just take a look at Nick's example, and by the way, we did this, Nick, I apologize. I know I rushed you because we literally did this in 10 minutes. What was the quality response? Number 1, it was easy to read. That's the easy part. AI can do that. But the relevancy is the hard part, in which most of them were relevant. 2 or 3 of them were things he had not considered. And half of them are things that he had considered or wants to reconsider, right? And we just did that in 10 minutes. And by the way, we, quote unquote, half-assed it. We can run the same experiment again and again. We can go back and we can edit our inputs. We can change the outcome. We can talk about the idea, the problem we're trying to solve is to help customers find the right paint for their home as opposed to ordering swatches. And the AI is going to come up and give us whole better, different results. And so I want you guys, I don't know if, did anybody else run this along the side as we were running with Nick? Did anybody else run their own experiment?
Mustafa, Lisa shared in the chat that she ran it through Copilot and was noting some of the differences. So Lisa, I don't know if you're able to come off mute and share any more about that.
Yeah, so we have Chat GPT blocked, so we have to use Microsoft Copilot for everything.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just, run it through there, and it was pretty good as well. I think the prompt made a huge difference. There was a couple of interesting ideas, like Copilot kept mentioning lots of ideas around like metaverse and like virtual augmentation, and like I couldn't see in the Chat GPT generated results if that was in there. And then like frankly, one of the things I've been doing right now is helping teams write value propositions. So then I asked Copilot, write a value proposition for each one of these 20 ideas. And it's pretty solid, I have to say. Came up with some pretty good ones.
Good. So thank you for that, Lisa. And by the way, you'll notice that the way I write these prompts, they are actually LLM agnostic. So you can take the same prompt and run it in Claude. You can run it in Gemini, and you can run it in Copilot. Although I will tell you that my answers with Copilot, for whatever reason, are not as good as the other three LLMs. And I think that's probably because Microsoft adds in a few more instructions than I like. But the idea of this experiment is to just show you that if you know how to interact with AI, if you know how to actually ask the questions, you can get pretty darn good results very quickly, right? Most people or most students, when they come to my class, they're like, Mustafa, AI doesn't get us, right? I asked it a question and it just gives me garbage responses, right? And the reason is not that AI gives you garbage responses, is because you have to ask AI in a certain format and a certain way for it to give you the right responses. Most people would take that exercise that we just did and say, hey, can you just give me 10 new product ideas for paint swatch features? And I guarantee you, if you put that into AI right now, you wouldn't get the same quality responses that you get now. So how you ask questions is important. And that's why I shared that prompt with you. It has a certain structure that I teach my students to do it again and again, and you're always going to get higher quality answers, so to speak. Any questions on that before we go on to the next one? I do encourage all of you to try this prompt at home, so to speak. Play around with it, change the inputs, check the relevancy, check the quality responses. Use the simple litmus test. I actually have 6 dimensions I check on. I'm just sharing 3. But check these 3 dimensions. If for whatever reason you're not getting these dimensions, that means you need to go back to your prompt and change some of the parameters to give you better answers, so to speak. But listen, we literally did 10 minutes and we got fairly decent responses. Wouldn't you agree, Nick?
Yes.
Sorry. Good. So if you guys learn how to write it if you learn how to ask AI questions the right way, a whole world of possibility opens up. So let me share with you how other PMs are now using AI. So let me go back to my playbook, right? So if you go to the playbook, it's amazing what you can do with AI. So we just did brainstorming features, but you can write epics, you can write narratives, you can align epics to key themes, or align with corporate initiatives. You can do prioritization. You can write product summary, problem summaries. You can create B2B personas, B2C personas, jobs to be done. You can generate day in the life of persona. You can create user journeys. You can create interview questions. My favorite is synthesized user feedback. I spent hours looking through transcripts and looking through people's interviews to come up with ideas. With AI, I can do it with a click of a button. You can actually help you with UX, UI too, right? So yes, it's not there yet to actually help you build a MVP or prototype, but you know what? It can tell you what the content structure for a website can be. It can tell you what the sitemap can be. It can actually even do some very minimum wireframes. and it can actually help you write copy for UX. And if you go to the build session, this is where I spend most of my time about writing PRDs with my cohort. You can write user stories, you can write acceptance criteria, you can write non-functional ideas, you can create PRD summaries. My favorite, actually, believe it or not, where is it? Oh, it's not in this one. I actually have multiple playbooks. But my favorite is that you can actually upload a PRD, and you can actually have AI review the PRD based on the dimensions that you care about, and it'll tell you where it's lacking and how you can fix it. You can generate test cases. You can generate technical questions for grooming. You can actually do product roadmaps. You can do release notes. Lots and lots of people are using it for release notes because release notes, frankly speaking, are a pain in the you-know-what, but it has to be done. You can do it for market research, comparative analysis, industry trends, segmentation, value propositions. Lisa, you mentioned about generating value propositions. This is a great one because actually, if you go to this one, you can actually put down the features that you care about. Talk about, again, the users, the product you're trying to build, the value proposition, and it will generate a value proposition for you, so to speak. And it can make it into a tweet, like which I call it a snippet, or it can give you a whole bunch of value propositions. But the list goes on and on. It is, even I do a lot of leadership coaching as well. A lot of them use it for OKRs and metrics. A lot of use it for sparring, for creating the product vision. Oh, that's the analyze PRD piece. They actually use it to analyze PRDs. So instead of them reading the whole document, which could be 20, 30, 40 pages, they'll actually upload it and they'll look at it at multiple dimensions and then give feedback on it. So I guess the question, my point was that I was trying to share with you, there's so much that you can do with AI if you just let it, and if you just know how to ask the right questions, so to speak. Any questions so far? Do you have any questions in chat?
No more in the chat right now.
Perfect. So with that being said, I want to leave a healthy amount of time for question and answers. Let me just kind of go to, let me go through next steps and then we can open it up. Yes? Right? So as for next steps, if you went through this presentation and said, oh, you know what? I need to figure out how I can use AI to automate my daily work, consider joining my bootcamp, right? The next one starts on August 23rd. The goal of the bootcamp is to actually help you do the 3 things that I just talked about: save time, impress stakeholders, and get you either advance your career or future-proof your career. And what you learn there is you learn the 60 tasks that we just talked about in the playbook that I shared with you. But you know what? The 60 tasks, frankly speaking, are never enough. What happens when you want to automate the 61st task or the 62nd task? Number 2 is where you really start to learn how to craft precise instructions to automate any future PM tasks. So you don't rely on a playbook. You can actually start building your own playbook. The future of AI is actually agents. And so we actually go into how do you build your own personal co-pilots. The good thing is you don't actually have to know any coding. There's a simple way to do that. 4th one is not all LLMs are created equal. I actually don't use ChatGPT for everything. I use Claude for certain things, and I use Gemini for certain things. So knowing which LLM to use for which task is just as important as how you write the instructions, so to speak. And then, of course, it's all about the mindset. That is where it all starts, about how LLMs work, what you can expect, what you cannot expect. A lot of the times when I talk to my cohort and students, there's a mismatch between what they want the LLM to do and what the LLM is capable of doing. And so understanding that allows you, or allows you to use the technology in a way it's meant to be used, as opposed to you being disappointed. And if you're interested, there's a coupon code there. You just use that link. That link is valid for the next 48 hours. And if you're not ready yet, that's quite all right. Start using what we did today. Just start with Start with the brainstorming piece. Play around with the inputs. Play around with adding more details or less details. You will find out, and this is where I focus on, is that at a certain point in time, putting too much information actually hurts you. Putting too little information hurts you. Understanding the right level of information to put into the input piece, which is the red piece that we just talked about, is just as important skill as writing the rest of the prompt, right? So at the end of our call today, I believe Betsy or Nick are going to send out a link, and that link will actually have the video recording. We'll have this deck. I'll give you my top 5 most popular productivity boosting prompts. So today we just saw the first one, but there's 4 others that keep getting used again and again. I think persona is one, user stories is another one. I think value proposition is a third one, and I'm blanking on what the last one is. And then you get access to my newsletter as well. So with that being said, let me open it up to questions and see if you guys have any. See what's on top of your mind.
And everyone should feel free to come off mute and just speak up, or if you prefer to use the chat, I can help relay the message.
I guess I had a question. For me, it seems like this is great, like prompt engineering and all that stuff, but it seems like if I did put in the extra time, I could go on Google and find most of the stuff that it was kind of spitting out to me. So if you're kind of trying to create like a feature or a product that's like really like innovative, groundbreaking, someone hasn't really done that, something that, you know, specific before, are you using it more like as a soundboard, or are you kind of going back and forth with it, or how would you do something for that?
So, so let me see if I can answer that in both ways, right? So yes, you can actually Google this, but I don't think so you can actually Google the responses that we had right now, even with Nick's example. And if you did, think about how much time that you would spend going through links, going through all the documents to come up with a list. And then even if you came up with that list, you still had to write the responses because they were never going to be in the format that you like. And by the way, I just use the standard format that I use at Google. Your company might have a different format, and so you can give that instructions to the LLM. So that's number 1. Number 2 is it depends on your definition of what innovative is, right? So if the AI gives you features that you have never considered before, that itself is of value. If you're expecting AI to consider a feature that nobody has thought about before, ever, now you're asking the technology to do something that it is not designed to do. Right? So this is where the mindset piece comes in, importantly. So you have to know how to use the technology, but you also need to know the limitations and capabilities of the technology, so to speak, so that you can get the most out of it. AI is not there, even in this example, by the way, AI is not there to replace you guys, right? So think about it this way. In even this example, Nick had to put in the input. Nick had to create the prompt. AI gave it a bunch of options. AI didn't come up and say, this is the one feature that you need to do. AI came in and said, here's things that you should consider. And then off that 20, you can pick 3 or 4 that make sense to you. You're not going to pick all 20. You may tweak those a little bit, so to speak, but AI is there to enhance your capability, but not replace it. But AI is also not there to give you ideas that never, ever existed, so to speak, because the technology is not built that way. It's a large language model that's based on quote unquote language mapping of how we've done things in the past. Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? I see one in chat.
Yeah. Recording or slides. So
Yes.
yeah, we will be sending through the Meetup platform that you registered through. So keep
Yeah.
an eye out for that. We'll send links of both, right, Mustafa?
Yeah. Yes, I will do. I'll send you a link. You can just And in that link, you can download the recording, you can download the top 5 productivity boosting prompts, you can download the deck, and it'll give you access to the newsletter as well. So, and Jeff, I absolutely agree. Old marketing statement from IBM, computers work, people think.
Nice.
You don't ever want to be in a place in which that computers think for you, because that's dangerous. And by the way, AI cannot do that. AI cannot think for you. So all those things about AI taking over humans' jobs is from people who actually don't know how the technology is working or how they can use it, because it cannot think for you. It can just give you options. Any other questions? Anything else, or any other questions on AI in general? I know we focus predominantly on AI and product management, but I'm happy to broaden the scope.
Okay, yeah, I think we can all give the reaction there in Zoom for the clapping hands, or you come off mute and clap.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Gustavo.
guys.
Amber, are you clapping or are you asking a question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the raise the hand icon fast enough. I do have a question. I was just wondering what you are excited about, like most excited about, or like something new that you're looking into, or like what's the new thing on your list that you're excited about with AI for PMs?
Wow, that's a good question. I have to actually, there's so many things. Let me give you the top 3 things that come to my mind. Yes. So let's start with the simple ones, and then I'll talk about the other stuff. So the simple one is that just around the corner, we are actually going to get a whole new set of large language models. So right now, our top model is OpenAI 4.0, and 4.0 is pretty good, but I can't wait for 5. So the responses that we see here are great, but with 5, it's going to have better pattern recognition matching capabilities, which means the quality of responses gets better and better. It also means that the way we ask questions become more and more important, so to speak. So I can't wait to test out 5. And I've raised my hand to be one of the early testing groups, but so far I have not received the email, but I'm really excited about that one. The second is about agents. Agents are basically a way for you to clone yourself. If you think about it, it's like a mini me, right? You can actually have an agent that is very specific and task specific, in which you can just give it very minimum input. And if you program it correctly, it will do some of the work for you. So even the prompt that we just saw right now, you can turn that into an agent. And so instead of copy pasting it from a document and then copying it into OpenAI, you can actually create an agent and say, okay, here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. Instead of writing it, you can talk into it, right? Which is much easier, as we saw. You can just talk about it, and AI will then generate a bunch of features for you or whatever else you want for it. So that's the second. The third one, which I think is really, there's a startup I'm advising on this one, is that AI presents the opportunity to completely change the way we interact with machines. So if you think about it, our entire internet, everything that we do is form-based. When you go into Gmail, what are you doing? You're typing into a form. When you apply for a credit card, it's a form. They're good forms, great UX. They make the experience much easier, but ultimately it's a form. It's a set of information that the computer is collecting from you, and it's interacting. Everything we do is form-based. AI has the ability to change that paradigm completely. So instead of form, you can just talk to the machine. And that is very powerful. Humans are much better at talking than typing. Right? Even now, when we had to do the input, there was a lot of processing that had to happen both in Nick's mind and my mind to actually type it down. But if I just asked Nick to talk, it'd be so much easier. So let me give you an example. instead of you applying for a credit card, I can go online and I can go to my favorite bank, and in order for me to apply for a credit card, I have to fill in a whole bunch of information. Imagine now if I actually had AI embedded in my walls, in which I can just talk to it and say, hey, I want to apply for a credit card with X, Y, and Z bank. And the AI would come back and say, hey, Mr. Kapadia, you already have an account with us. Here's the 3 pieces of information that we need. And we'll apply the credit card, we'll send the application for you. And it asks me those 3 questions. I respond in those 3 questions, and I'm done. I don't actually have to ever touch a form again. And if you think about that paradigm, that is going to completely change the way we interact with machines. And that's coming, by the way. Right? There are startups right now who are experimenting with changing the way we interact with machines. I mean, you talk about UX and UI, and UX and UI are really there to make forms better so you can go through a certain path. But what if there's no screen? You're just talking. And so to me, that's what gets me even more excited. So
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Yes. Good. I know there was a bunch of other questions. Sorry, go ahead.
So Nick, I was going to suggest if you just want to do our closing slides, we can officially close, but then Mustafa, I don't know if you're available to hang on for like 5 more minutes for those couple.
I'm happy to do that. Listen, I can talk about this thing till the cows come home. You can actually shut down. I'll still be talking about it when, I don't even need an audience.
Amazing. So Chris, if you're able to stick on, we'll address yours, but we'll do our official closing real quick.
Okay, for the outro here, Pitt Agile, Jeff, you're on. Wave hello to everybody. Pitt Agile is going to have a gathering on November 6th and 7th. You can go to pitagile.net to find out more, block your calendars, and stay tuned. More details will be forthcoming, so those talks are in the works. For us here at Product Tank Pittsburgh, we're looking for in-person events coming up in September and October. Our bi-monthly schedule is going into hyper overdrive because people just want more of it. So we'll have those details coming out to you. You can join us on LinkedIn and Slack. Those links will be included in our meetup follow-up message. Also, I think some details about the recording. And if you remember at the top of our presentation, our usual spiel, there are ways for you to get involved. We're always looking for topics, speakers, venues, and sponsors. Please just reach out. We would love to have you and help get involved in the community. But most of all, thank you. You make this all possible.
And thank you for having me.